All right, part two, take two. Let's get weird. Actually, it's take three. Having some difficulties, technical and spiritual and physical, esoterical. And if you can see, there's a tiny pug in the background, and she's snoring because that's what she does 90% of the day. We're going to try to get through this. In the previous video, we covered the beginning of the stuff with Dr. Sebi and his background and those conspiracy theories, and how we also brought in some big pharma, big medical, big tech, and how a lot of this stuff is very difficult to piece together. And I'm going to go into some of this and how to like construct the oh my God, it went out again. He's barking at Rick?
I think so. He was staring at it.
Don't fucking bark at Rick, dude. God knows what happened. It shoots you in another dimension. There's a Rick. Wait, hold on. There's a camera left. There's a Rick there. You see? Oh my. I'll pick it up and see how it goes. So we'll also talk about the construction of some of these conspiracy theories and how it's difficult to have a theory, splinter the theory into other theories that really kind of fuck up the main theory too, and then how things happen that we can, again, prove and document and record and research and talk to people and find actual evidence of, and then try to keep or hold the conspiracy theory. I'm going to use Bigfoot as an example for this later on, so that should be fun. I don't think I read this part, but various fringe theories have arisen to speculate that purported alternative origins for HIV and AIDS have come up, with claims ranging from being due to accidental exposure to supposedly purposeful acts. I got a little bit of history on where those come from, so that'll be fun. Several inquiries and investigations have been carried out as a result, which is interesting that they studied where the public is on some of this stuff, and what their conclusions were and how they break that down. And each of these theories consequently has been determined to be based on unfounded or false information, and I'm going to add disinformation to that. HIV has been shown to have evolved or be closely related to the SIV, or simian immunodeficiency virus, in West Central Africa sometime in early 20th century. It's interesting that there's also these claims that get made and they have like an associated timeline with them, and then science has actually been able to go back and prove, and some of this stuff is recent in the last, from 2010 on, have also been able to prove that the virus existed way prior to when we actually knew it was a thing. And they actually have tissue samples, they have several labs, they have several universities, there's several backgrounds behind that information. So you might be like, oh, they're just the government or big medicine or big pharma's like pushing that timeline back to create this bullshit. But the problem is when you have evidence behind that, and you have evidence that you can show for it, that makes that kind of tough. So there's documented cases. This kind of gets HIV discovered and kind of proven by a French scientist in the 1980s, but before the 1980s, we already have quite a bit of evidence that existed decades before that. So one of the theories is smallpox vaccination theory. In 1987, there was some consideration given to the possibility that AIDS epidemic may have been triggered by the mass vaccination campaign which eradicated smallpox, all that quote unquote. An article in the Times suggested this, quoting an unnamed WHO advisor, with, I believe, a smallpox vaccine theory is the explanation to the explosion of AIDS. So that's skeptical, right? We know who said it, right? WHO. It was an owl, basically. It was a crazy owl who didn't like smallpox vaccines or that. A lot of, as a side note right now, a lot of anti-vax information, and this is going to come into play later, but a lot of anti-vax information is actually made from other countries and then disseminated into American medicine and American conspiracy theories, and even some bought and paid for kind of actors who promote that or will get a hold of journals and make that those claims because it's juicy, it sounds sensational. But a lot of this, especially even going all the way to the COVID vaccines right now, where some of that disinformation's come from, we've noticed specifically, U.S. intelligence agencies have noticed specifically in the last 10 years that Russia has been highly promoting anti-vax information and even making films, and they'll get people to kind of be the main stars and main scientists and main voices behind these films, and it's much Russian money. It comes from the government, how they get this stuff tracked, and that is the if you look at that side of the theory or that side of the fact, is Russia can't beat us in a war, so they are trying every means possible to basically get us to tear ourselves apart, and that's a big reason. Supposedly, I'll just throw that in there so it stays like kind of like in the theory realm. But that is a big reason that Trump was promoted to the level that he was, and then went out there and actually did the things that they had been wanting and hoping to do successfully, and getting a large population to turn on themselves and the institutions, and then create basically havoc and chaos. If I brought this up before, but if you do actually get a hold of or read or even watch the documentary on the hell is it called?
I don't know where you're
The
going.
file that was made, the dossier. If you get a hold of the dossier or can read the dossier, or know people who've read the dossier and tore it apart, the investigation, the Mueller investigation, if you actually read the entire Mueller investigation, if you haven't, you should absolutely shut the fuck up about anything associated with that subject. If you are getting all of your information from the media, even if it's social media, especially if it's Facebook or any of that kind of shit, and you're looking to have them break down the Mueller investigation for you, nah, player. You need to get in there. You need to read that entire thing. A lot of it is boring. A lot of it is back and forth interviews. A lot of it is interviews that don't go anywhere, but they still had to do it. Quite a bit is still redacted. But that thing lays out a well-played scandal and a well-played gathering and host and long-term game that was enacted and put into play against us for this stuff. So Russia can't go head-to-head. We would destroy each other. That goes all the way back to Castro and Gorbachev and Cuban Missile Crisis and the Cold War. More than North Korea, more than Iran, more than stuff. If Russia did anything, we would immediately enact nuclear weapons, probably, and in basically end the world. And Russia's for it. Cuba was very much for it. Castro, that he actually wanted to do it. If you watch an incredible documentary by an incredible government official, a very smart dude, The Fog of War, by oh my god, I'm blanking on his name. Holy shit. That's sad. I know it's Mac something. Fuck me. Can you look that up, please?
What's it called?
Robert McNamara. There you go. Boom. Can you just confirm that though, so I don't totally come off as a fucking idiot? But yeah. Speaking of which, all right. So every time you fuck up, you gotta take a drink. That's the thing. Every time Chris loses his shit, you're ready to get wasted. Robert McNamara, 100%.
Secretary of Defense.
Boom. That's cool. That's all I needed. I know it's him.
Sure.
Yeah, he actually had some really cool positions. The guy had a very fascinating life. He was around some very top level.
Went to UC Berkeley.
That's irrelevant. But he was around some. The guy was around the major events, through the 1950s and in 1980s and even further. He helped, completely launch an entire Better Business strategy and accounting for Ford, and took that to new levels. But he just had some very interesting interactions with some major main players and historical events. One of my favorites is that Robert Kennedy and Bobby Kennedy, I think there was a third person involved, bring him in to offer him a different position than, what'd you say, Secretary of Defense?
Yeah.
I think they were going to offer him something higher. And he, rightfully so, he goes, Mr. President, I have no background in that position. And JFK goes like this. He goes, "Do you think there's a school for presidents?"
There should be.
Which is interesting because JFK is considered, I mean, technically on paper, one of the best presidents, leaders. I mean, speechwriters, interviews, his family, and like everything about him was this kind of like pristine prestige form of presidency and a president and his family. I mean, he's banging Marilyn Monroe. Like, there's also controversy. He's addicted to amphetamines.
Aren't we all?
Oh yeah, we all are. I mean, let's be honest. And then, but I thought that was fascinating. And what's funny is a lot of people think there is a school for presidents because some of these people that end up in government, they have family history of people in government. Like Trump's very interesting. Who the hell put this guy in position? But then his grandfather, his uncle, pretty sure it's his grandfather, was the one who was in charge of...
I don't want to look him up.
I know, don't. He was the one in charge of getting all of Tesla's suitcases and files after Tesla died, which supposedly was ransacked by like a couple different people, but the U.S. got a hold of these trunks. Supposedly he had like over 80, and there's actually shit missing because he actually wrote numbers on all of them, which is very interesting.
Well, why wouldn't you? If you're going to keep suitcases, you got to keep them in order.
That dude is so far ahead of so many curves. Like curves don't actually exist where he's from. He's just out there, and maybe some of that was because he was around so much electricity and lightning and shit. So maybe it did change some molecules in his brain.
The frequency has changed.
Yeah, but I mean, like, we're still finding out that so much of his shit was true, and he was somewhat of a weird scientific prophet. He had talked about cell phones and cellular towers and was trying to connect the grid, and I mean, the guy still has projects that are basically unknown, but Trump's grandfather, I believe, in this, is in charge of getting all these files, going through them, and then on paper actually concludes that there's no scientific value. That's the quote unquote, which is mind-blowing because everything that dude said and did is of scientific value, even if he was fucking around. Like, there's a really cool documentary about Tesla where they try to kind of like retrace his last moments and stuff. They were concerned and concluded that the hotel that he was living in was built specifically for him as like an undercover operation in which he was creating different electrical experiments and running experimentation. But he was a pigeon fan, so he had pigeons, and there's like an idea that he was sending messages via homing pigeon to different places in the city.
Sense.
Yeah, especially for him. I mean, it's weird that like he kept so many secrets and was willing to take a lot of that shit to his grave. Like, I don't trust you fuckers, like whatever government.
Well, clearly nothing was of scientific evidence.
Yeah, clearly nothing was deemed of scientific value.
He was never on to anything.
There's no one in the Trump family that if they said that, I would trust that. If John Jr. posted a picture of a rock, and he was like, "This has no scientific value," I'd be like, "You lying dumbass motherfucker." Like, I wouldn't believe that. We're off subject completely. How did I get to Tesla?
HIV and AIDS.
Back me up. No, we went.
You went down a rabbit hole, is what happened.
We did with the smallpox vaccine, and we talked about what was before this. Son of a bitch! I should pause this and like review. But we're in it now, right?
Get weird.
Yeah, we got weird, but the WHO and and when you're not able to actually get people who knowingly did this kind of stuff and be able to backtrack this, you can't just have an advisor do this. Oh, it's Russia and disinformation and that kind of shit. So we've known also, going back in the past 10 years, in the past 5 to 3 years in particular, we've been able to see, especially on Facebook in particular, but people posting stuff as disinformation, especially towards vaccine, and then that gets spread. There's one rumor that was kind of recent, I believe with COVID, and a lot of people were reposting that, and some investigative journalists basically tracked it down to a single post that didn't really belong to any account. It had a Russian IP address. They were able to trace all that information. And basically, this dude pretended to be a journalist, did one post on, I believe, an anti-vaccination or COVID conspiracy, and it took off like wildfire. And so fact-checking a lot of that stuff is difficult. You do kind of have to sift through the stuff. If you don't have a background, it makes a lot of this stuff more difficult. What are you trying to do, my friend? Okay. Trouble fucking maker right there. So yeah, so it's there's difficulty in this, but a lot of medical disinformation specifically seems to be coming from other areas. Again, you can get paid actors. Russia that we know of has made 2 short documentaries specifically on anti-vaccines. They'll get European doctors or European sounding doctors to make these claims like, oh, we figured out what the US is doing and it's shady shit. And they put it out there and it gets bought up and it gets eat up. Especially if people are suffering in some way from any of these parts of the theories, then they're gonna pick it up even more. So has there been an increase in diagnosed and also misdiagnosed, because now there's a wide spectrum of autism in the past 20, 30 years? Yeah, you can medically track how all this has gone up. What are the associations with that? I believe the last time I even tried to round up some of this stuff, there was over 50 potential causes for kind of the main idea of autism, and it ranged from cell phones to dietary issues to that kind of shit. But we know now, in the human umbilical cord, before a baby's born, they've done testing in the past decade, and have found hundreds of chemicals. And I mean, if you have a kid now and it's okay, it's normal, it's like a fucking miracle. Like, we definitely are surrounded by a lot of toxicity, and I mean that in 100 different ways, from social to economic to environmental to all that kind of stuff. So it's amazing that some of this stuff comes out, and you'll see that, yeah, the kid's healthy. Give it a year. Within that year, there can be massive developmental issues or problems. With autism, there's no kind of onset slowly. There's no kind of progression. It's just boom. So with vaccines in particular, that was kind of the main cause. One thing they've actually been able to kind of figure out is that the amount of vaccines we have now, and that some doctors were over vaccinating a child. So they may, instead of one vaccine every 3, 5, 6, 8 months kind of thing, or even 2, they would hit a kid with 5 or 8. Some of these parents in particular would bring the kid in, and it's like, well, let's just get it all done now. The science on each vaccine is normal and good, and there's no associated side effects. And then you do 6 at once, and then the kid's system's fried. It overcooks it. Even Jim Jeffries had a funny story joke, #NotFunny, about his kid and a similar situation. And then he got diagnosed. The punchline is he's autistic, right? No. So now it's like, well, yeah, like a lot of people are. If you're good at math, you're probably autistic. We all? Exactly. We all are on the spectrum. It's like a rainbow.
Not that kind.
Fun fact: there's actually thousands of variations of color in a rainbow, but you can only see like 8. So doesn't that suck? Technically, a rainbow is like 5 miles thick of just colors, but you can't see them. Some of them are like ultraviolet.
Unless you're colorblind.
Unless you're on a lot of mushrooms, in which case,
you see
everything's a rainbow. Yeah, man. I don't know from experience, but I've heard it. Me personally, I was having some very crazy symptoms a couple months ago. Basically, the little one standing over me going, get dressed, you're going to the ER. Like it was that bad, and I can't drive. I'm fucked up. We actually may have to call an ambulance. randomly one night, as this stuff started to kick on again, and I started to go through these symptoms and side effects, I literally just ran. It was all of a sudden like, hold on a second, and I started Googling some shit, and basically all I was Googling was medication interactions. And it turns out, like on a standalone, each of these medications are fine, totally normal. They have their own side effects and symptoms. But you combine two, and you got a couple. You can have some problems. You combine three or more, then you can get some real crazy shit. And that's what happened. And even my doctors were like, didn't consider that. Didn't know. I knew that these two had a side effect, but I thought you were taking these at different times a day type shit. It's even stuff like that. Yeah, you feed them. It's puppy dinner time, so they're gonna lose their shit if they don't get anything. You need any help? I'm gonna pause. Puppy feeding time with pugs is also loud and crazy, so you may hear some strange noises in the background. But anyways, let's get back into this. That's kind of some shit that can happen. First of all, that's where some of the information come from, which is other countries basically trying to fuck us and sabotage us. And then it can also happen from within. And then it can happen because of we just don't have enough information. So people who aren't experts or don't know enough just start guessing. So some of these doctors are like, yeah, man, I shot this kid with a vaccine with like 5 vaccines. And it's now showing signs of autism. So one and done. And that's actually what happened with vaccine companies. One of the things that I heard from a very reputable source was that basically it got to a point where vaccine companies went to the FDA and the US government and were like, we are getting sued so much, so often, and unable to defend ourselves that we're not going to make vaccines anymore. Like, it's not profitable. We are literally hemorrhaging money because we have studies, we have proof and evidence that the vaccine's fine, but this kid also has a short medical history that it's fine. He, she, they, them are fine. And then the doctor gave it a shot, and then it has autism-like symptoms. So, like, you go to court and you get an expert witnesses that totally want to sink these companies and make their money, because most expert witnesses start at about $10,000. I know that personally because I was exposed to pesticides for a better part of a year and tried to sue everybody involved, and was told, fun fact, I was told by one lawyer, this was really funny. He goes, there's not enough meat on the bone. Call me when you have cancer. So that's still something I'm dealing with. One of my functional medicine doctors that I consulted with and sought for a lot of help, looked at some of my test results and spun around his chair very violently and yelled in a kind of frantic way that I would more than likely be facing Parkinson's, and to my girlfriend that don't ever have a kid until you get this stuff really situated and tested, and you're not going to pass any of this stuff on because you are just going to have a kid with issues, and it's going to cause a big problem. So some of this stuff is very personal to me. So again, this is why it's kind of like a labor of love to have these kind of conversations. Again, no one's really going to die over a Bigfoot conspiracy, but people obviously are dying over like a QAnon conspiracy, and with the medical stuff, it sets it up for failure. And obviously, we are in the worst epidemic we've faced in over 100 years, basically, and it's getting worse. And so helping people kind of get some facts and truths and some pathways to this kind of stuff, to a better idea of thinking and trying to assess this and using some logic to kind of create a kind of positive result versus a negative result for this. And I'll do this for diets, I'll do this for exercise, I'll do this for supplements, I'll do this for ingredients, I'll do it for BPA, I'll do it for cell phones, I'll do this kind of stuff so that people that I come in contact with and that I talk to, they have a more comfortable, calm understanding. And if they're looking at a situation or a problem or a product or something in their life, they can try to logically and rationally deduce that versus turning to, and I know this is going to be hypocritical, a YouTube video or a Facebook or a friend who is, balls deep in both of those and loves to spout crazy shit. I'm for having crazy conversations. I love it. Real life sucks. If we find out Area 51 is just a base, they just were building airplanes, that's fucking boring and heartbreaking. For decades, we've been like, no, there's some crazy shit going on there, man. And then like, I don't know, it's always Southern, but and then you go and we're like, we're gonna take the base, and the entire military is like, we will kill you on sight, and we're not even gonna arrest you, we're just gonna shoot you, and so that's like, all right, well that's who's gonna go first, and who's gonna be the 100th, and you gotta set all that up. You need at least 100 sacrifices before we get to the gate, kind of thing. And again, like I'm saying, like some of that stuff is normal and it's fine and it's fun to think about, and other shit, it's dangerous and it puts people in dangerous situations and it puts people in negative places and anxiety, and so I'm trying to rule some of that stuff out. So let's pick back up on the notes, right? We were talking about smallpox vaccination theory. So, when this kind of theory by this advisor gets put out there, it is now thought that the smallpox vaccine causes serious complications for people who already have impaired immune systems. And the Times article that we were talking about like 15 minutes ago described the case of a military recruit with dormant HIV, which can happen. A lot of people can have diseases or genetic diseases that do not present symptoms. One of those can be herpes virus. It's out there. You can see it. You can touch it. You can smell it if you're weird. Probably definitely taste it. But you can get somebody who all of a sudden in their 20s and 30s, boom, cold sore, bam. Who were you cheating with? I didn't have this shit, and they've literally had it since childbirth, kind of situation. So that happened. So this military recruit with dormant HIV who died within months of receiving the vaccine, that's one of those complications that gets put out there that's not abnormal. Again, most medications / all medications have side effects and can have dormant side effects in people. It can have an effect and you don't even know, like a heart arrhythmia. And you're just like, well, man, I have anxiety. This is weird. I get sleepy. Tons of shit that's out there that you have to factor in, and science can't cover all the bases. Medicine can't cover all the bases, which is why, crazy shit. We don't even talk about medicine. Peanuts are fine for most of the population, but you get some dude who's got an allergy, some chick who's got an allergy, and that's a death sentence. Water, sure, in moderation, of course, yeah. Have too much, electrolyte poisoning. There's those kinds of incidences and circumstances, without getting into like, how was your food cooked and prepared, and diseases, and who's handling most of your stuff, and where does it come from, what's it made from, all that kind of shit. Some of this stuff is just inside of you and you don't even know. Like I took my 23andMe. We know that there's Alzheimer's in the family, and just like a fun fact, it's not Alzheimer's. That is it's a funny mispronunciation. It's Alzheimer's. It's a German pronunciation, Alzheimer's, I believe. But I took my 23andMe test and came back positive for the gene. Pretty much guessed that, and it tells you right there on the paper. May or may not turn on. There's at least probably a dozen genes in all of us that may or may not decide to flip the switch. You just have like literally this tiny molecular kind of chromosome just like floating around, just doing its thing, and all of a sudden it's like, you know what? Let's just fucking ruin everything. This is the time. Let's kill it. Let's kill whatever this is. So this exists. You have to factor this stuff in when you're talking about a lot of this stuff, especially like allergic reactions. This kind of reaction sounds kind of familiar. Oh, he died within months of receiving it. So this vaccine seemed to just kick off his dormant HIV, and I'm guessing just the immune system overshot and collapsed and ate itself from there, basically. I don't know what he died of specifically. Could be pneumonia, but it happens. It's not abnormal. You can't look at this one thing and be like, I got you, motherfucker. Because that's not accurate. That's not the right thing to do. But no citation was provided regarding people who did not previously have HIV. Current HIV is considered to be you guys are back. Kind of like a contradiction reaction to smallpox vaccine. So there's some issues with that. There are vaccines that if you go to get, they will ask you like, hey, what's your bro, you're in the camera. You're like, they will ask you like, what are you allergic to? And they always ask you the updates of that. It's so funny. Like you go to the doctor for like 10 years and every time you're in there, like, what medications are you allergic to? Because that shit gets updated. I didn't know, what was the fucking last one that I took? Amoxicillin. What was the antibiotic? And I fucking went into anaphylaxis. Yeah, amoxicillin. I knew I was allergic to penicillin, but then thank God I never got an STD. That we know of could be dormant. Oh, you weren't here for this conversation. No. With myself. But was prescribed amoxicillin for an infection and went into a very slow anaphylactic shock. And all of a sudden I realized that my tongue had swelled and pushed against my teeth so hard that when I put my tongue out and looked in the mirror, you could see my entire teeth marks, my entire backside of my teeth imprinted deeply into my tongue. I didn't know that. I was breathing through my nose at the time. Called the doctor and they were like, oh shit, take 2 Benadryls immediately. Fix the problem. So it happens, right? And some of this stuff gets updated and you don't know. Your immune system changes over time, which is why when you're a kid you can drink milk and later on you're all of a sudden lactose intolerant kind of shit. Your body changes constantly. That's a jam. Because of that contradiction interaction with the smallpox vaccine, both for an infected person and their sexual partners and household members, they've even noticed changes in that. So they've been able to track that. Some conspiracy theorists propose an expanded hypothesis in which the smallpox vaccine, was deliberately contaminated with HIV. Dun, dun, dun. In contrast, a research article was published in 2010, pretty recently, suggesting that it might have been the actual eradication of smallpox and the subsequent ending of the mass vaccination campaign that contributed to the sudden emergence of HIV. The theory was the possibility that immunization against smallpox, quote unquote, might play a role in providing an individual with some degree of protection to subsequent HIV infection and or disease progression, regardless of the effects of the smallpox vaccine itself. Its use in practice in Africa is one of the categories of unsterile injections that may have contributed to the spread and mutation of immunodeficiency viruses. That is just a kind of medical fuck up. Some of this stuff they cannot see into the future of what's going to be the cause problem. Excuse me. So you can't predict that. They try to lay out the model when they're making this stuff, when they like, well, okay, what can be the downwards effects of this? Even if we completely eradicate this virus, would it come back in a different form? Would it try to mutate along the process? All of a sudden, if the virus is dying in the population and it gets to like a halfway point and we start hitting herd immunity, viruses are like their own intelligence. They may turn around and be like, you know what, bitch, I got something for you. And then it just grows like a third arm, and then boom, it's like you have a whole new shit, which is what we're kind of going through with COVID right now. If you want to bring it into the modern. There's also a hepatitis B vaccine theory. Dermatologist Alan Cantwell, I don't even know if I need to say his name, in self-published books entitled AIDS and the Doctors of Death, an inquiry into the origin of AIDS epidemic, and Queer Blood, the secret AIDS genocide plot. That's a fucked up title. Although if you're like in an airport and you're like, Queer Blood, you're like, I'm going to read that on the plane. I need to stand out. It still always blew my mind that I sold porn, well, they did. Oh yeah, you get it like Playboy. Like if you're like in an airport bookstore.
The airport sold porn.
Yeah. Airport sold porn. You could label it that way. So when we were in Europe and we were just like doing our Europe college vacay trip. To be
College.
weird. Yeah, to be weird, we bought some so we could just sit in public and read.
To be weird.
No, like, well, him, of course, like, Europe
Sure,
porn's
sweetie.
way different. But, you know, just like to sit on a plane and flip through a Playboy openly and, like, everyone around you, like, this fucking guy. This guy fucks. This guy, he can't stop fucking. That's why he's reading that. I'm over here reading Harry Potter. This guy's got a fucking open play. It just tits out. It's like now you get caught with, like, your cell phone or your laptop going off for that shit. Back in the day, you'd be like, yeah, man, you want to read the articles?
You gotta buy it.
Did you know Playboy has crossword puzzles? They don't. They actually have good jokes, though.
Everybody knows that.
Also, some famous authors. Hunter S. Thompson wrote for Playboy. Other people.
Anyways, moving on.
Good stories. Yeah. So queer blood, you know. Said that HIV is genetically modified organism developed by the U.S. government scientists. Who, though? Where? Where were they? How? What lab? Where did it work from? The virus was then introduced in the population through hepatitis B vaccines, experiments performed on gay and bisexual men, which is weird because a lot of people wouldn't admit to that, especially this time period, which is 1978 to 81. If you went to your doctor and you're like, you like dudes? You sleep with dudes? They're going to be like, no. Right? Or like, no. Right?
I don't think that's like a mandatory way to respond.
What is? What's a mandatory way to respond?
Or no.
Yeah.
You're crazy.
Yeah. I mean, you'd probably think the doctor's hitting on you.
A little excessive.
You know? Like, hey, you into dudes? Like, I don't, what's the medical question? Now it's like, you know, what do you prefer to be called? Like, it's changed so much. And you feel like no answer. Like, I like so many, like, how many college doctor forms did you fill out? And they're like, what's your sexual preference? And you're like, none of the above, you know?
None of your business.
Well, to them, it's their business. They're gonna fucking find out. I feel like
I never understood why it was a sexual preference.
Why it was a sexual preference? Because you have shit like this, you know? If they're like, oh my god, so many straight dudes are getting AIDS. It's like, well, that's unexpected. We specifically made this for gays. Why are straight dudes getting AIDS? Magic Johnson was gay. Like, what's Brian?
He was just fucking.
He fucked a lot of people. Probably male and female.
No.
Briar's Dallas Club? What is it? Matthew McConaughey? Dallas Buyers Club? Dallas Buyers Club. There you go.
Sure.
Boom. Bah, shit. Comes back to me. The whole time. Like, he gets kicked out of his town because they thought he was gay. Even though dudes were having, like, threesomes and foursomes with him and other chicks. And he never once talked positively about gays in the situation, story, movie. And then they basically ran him out of town for accusing him of being a homosexual no matter what he said or did. So that shit existed, especially at that time, then late 70s, early 80s. So the fact that they would just know all of this stuff. It's also weird because homosexuality in a lot of forms and bisexuality have been around for our lifetime.
Since the dawn of time.
Literally. And we've seen it in animals. We know that certain animals were gay. It'd be fun to know if certain dinosaurs were gay. Like, is that why they went extinct? They couldn't stop. Because I look at a T-Rex and I'm like, I'd hit it. You know? With an asteroid. I'd hit it with an asteroid. You're a sick pervert. Don't even talk about that. They're reptiles. No one looks at an alligator and like, you know, like.
We don't know that.
Yeah, yeah, who knows? There's probably a dude out there like, porcupines are fun.
Ain't no discrimination here.
Yeah, so it's weird. Like, this has been around for a long time. Have we tried to eradicate it? Yeah, there's been attempts, but it's never really worked. And then you find out later on that a lot of people were gay who tried to kill gays and eradicate gays. I mean, look at the Catholic Church, right? An entire religion that's based on, like, if you deviate from this plan, you are fucking in hell for eternity off this mark. And boom, they're fucking kids all over. Worse, they're not gays, they're pedophiles, right? So it can take interesting twists. And you're like, well, I thought the Catholic Church was really against homosexuality. Turns out, like, how many fucking like, what super mega church Christian leaders get caught doing gay stuff? So many anti-gay people get caught doing gay. What are you looking at on your phone?
It's fine.
Not even fucking. Are you?
I am.
God knows
There's
what
a lot of Oh, Nelly.
It's funny. So it's funny that, they're going to be like, with no valid reason. So if you look at this theory of the hepatitis vaccine developed, the book Queer Blood, you look at it, that it's developed to eradicate gay and bisexual men, specifically. Women are okay. It's cool. You do what you do. It's college. You experiment. But like, they don't know how much of the population they decide to then initiate the eradication in Africa. So they had eyes on Africa at the time. And they're like, well, Africa has an increasingly homosexual population. We should kill them. Like, that's where part of the logic folding in on this stuff becomes very difficult, right? It becomes, if you look at it and you're like, this guy wrote 2 books on a hepatitis B vaccine, and then the U.S. government scientists made AIDS to kill black people. That kind of any conspiracy theory that you come across, or theory that sounds off the kind of radar and fringe, your next immediate question should be why, right? So we know the what, we don't know the how. How was this put in a hepatitis B vaccine? Who made it? Who was doing this? I'm not saying World Health Organization, but who scientists? What main scientists you know what, guys? I got an idea. And then how do you pitch that, right? We can kill all the gays.
Jesus.
Yeah, George, what the fuck is wrong with you, man? What gays do to you? There would have had to been a government consensus. There would have had to been a meeting. Whatever secret lab profile, skull and bones, whoever the elitists were, would have got together, and you're like, it's a massive problem. It's gays, and we should kill all of them, but not publicly. We should do it quietly, privately, with a disease that takes months, years to kill you. And we'll put it out there. Put it in hepatitis vaccine. It's got a theory randomly that might work. A lot of people need to get hepatitis vaccine, and so we're gonna put it in that, and we're gonna kill all the gays. And why? Well, they eat our food. They eat our food, and they fuck our dudes, and our women like going shopping with them. And sometimes they dress better. Sometimes they wear outfits, and you don't know it's a woman. And they look cuter. Their purses are better. They're able to walk in heels. That's an art. There's you try to get the reason behind the eradication of gays. Like in Germany, it's like they if you weren't German, blonde hair and blue eyed, and Austrian descent, and part of Thor and his family, then no one deserved to live. But it's so funny they allowed Italians and Russians and anybody who would help Japanese, and then Argentina and South America. So they're like, if you're not blonde hair and blue eyed, you can't exist. But we're gonna ask help from all y'all sons of bitches, even though we know that that's the theory that's out there. We are telling you, if you are Jew, you are gone, and if you are black, you're gone. If you're gay, you're gone. If you're Polish, you're out of here. Fucking see ya. But if you're Japanese, my man, hey, right? So when you look at that kind of stuff, the bounce the ball a little bit further, you're like, okay, what's the why then? Why would you try to do this? A lot of people right now, especially in the shit that's gone on in the past couple of weeks and months, look at what's happening, and they're like, this is Nazi Germany, and a lot of people are like, why did the Germans hate Jews so bad? Weren't a lot of the Jews German? Was Hitler Jew? That's a conspiracy theory, right? Isn't he a repenting Jew? He was ashamed or something?
Certainly not Aryan.
Right? And not blonde-haired and blue-eyed. Neither anybody in control, which is hilarious. God damn, there's that one joke too in Operation. Fuck me, my memory today. But yeah, Operation Finale. My boy Ben. Big Ben. I can't remember his name. Can you look it up?
For what?
Just look. What's so funny? I can't remember his name. Can't remember his name. I can remember a different movie. House of Fog and Sand. Kingsley. Ben Kingsley. Bing. Woo. Got it. You were trying to guess, but you didn't have it either. Unless you're yelling at the screen, in which case, we should probably do this live so we could all chat together. Which would be cool. I would love to do Switch. Fuck it. Twitch or Switch. And so people can comment live. You know the girl that's got Tourette's? That's what she's on. They play games and shit. I can go through like notes and conspiracy theories online, and people could watch. That'd be fun. We'll learn in real time. It'd be like a master class of craziness.
Of Christopher's.
Yeah. Join my cult, man. So you got to look at why. If you're gonna look at, you know, and again, this goes back to the Bible. What's Jim Jeffries' joke? They ban shrimp 9 times, but homosexuality twice, which is a fun fact, actually. I'm glad he looked that up. But you have, you know, you like what was happening at the time that gays need to be eradicated. At the same time, and actually a lot of time before, especially when Hoover was J. Edgar Hoover was in charge of the FBI. That guy was just getting dirt on everybody, and he had a fun phrase that he would use to scare you, which would be that we know everyone's mistress and mister, and anybody who was gay back then would be like, fuck. It'd be one thing if you're having an affair, but you get caught with a dude, holy shit. And what's that all recently in the past couple years? Fucking Lindsey Graham. Right? You had a prominent male sex worker come out after he said some shit. Like he said something, he tweeted something or did an interview and said something, and a well-known, popular stripper, sex worker, male sex worker went like, "You queen, like I know everybody you fucked." Yeah, and he called like Miss Lindsay or something. Like he had like a cute code name. And that dude has always appeared to be.
I mean, I'm not surprised.
Not on the right. Not on the right, I guess you'd say. Which, yeah. I mean, someone like Democrats are like, yeah, cool, you're gay. Republicans are like, don't you dare. And then you do it, and they're like, you can't be a part of us. You can't be a part of the party. Like, you can say Republicans are anti-gay. Especially in the last 4 years. You can definitely say that. So the Cantwell, this guy wrote, you know, Queer Blood and another book, claims that those experiments were directed by Wolf Sumnus. And they were an ongoing government cover-up and the origins of the AIDS epidemic. Similar theories have been advanced by 4 other people. I don't know their background, so I didn't pull that shit up. I'm sorry. There's an oral polio vaccine theory. So here's an issue, okay? We got a smallpox vaccine. We got a hepatitis vaccine. We got an oral polio vaccine theory. They're all theories. 3 vaccines. Do I have another one? Nope. 3 vaccine theories. You got to pick one. You can't say all of them. There's too many diseases. It's too many people. True. There's too many players. It's too many. Like, one of these dudes would want to take credit. One of these guys, as a scientist, would want to go down as like, yeah, man, I fucking infected the oral polio vaccine to kill gays because fuck them and they should die. And lights out. And but none of that. You're not getting any of that. You, like, if the theory worked, if the conspiracy worked, it'd be one fucking vaccine and you'd be putting your money on that, and that would be the shit. We don't need to get 3 different vaccines and disinformation and question and conspiracy, all of them, unless you're another country and you want to cause chaos, where we're going to go into that in a second. But again, you know, in a 1990 version of the OPV, the oral polio vaccine AIDS hypothesis, Edward Hooper proposed that early batches of OPV grown in cultures of chimpanzee kidney cells infected with the chimpanzee virus were original source of HIV-1 in Central Africa. I believe this is what the Origin of AIDS conspiracy theory movie documentary is based on. I believe it's this one. So that makes sense. The only kind of proof behind some of this, behind some of this stuff is they had photographs. Supposedly he was supposed to experiment on a certain type of, if I'm trying to remember the documentary right, a certain type of monkey, and then he received the wrong monkey, but he still went through with the experiments on these monkeys, and that's what did it, and he fucking did it, and it was an accident. And then he put it out there, and the kind, like, the only, you know, if you're watching a documentary too, they save those pictures right for the end, kind of shit. So yeah, man, a viral batch most strongly implicated by Hooper was found in storage in the UK, and the analysis found no HIV or SIV sequences or chimpanzee cellular components. So like that's you would say like there's evidence, right? You don't have evidence that you did it, but we have evidence that you didn't do it, and people are gonna be like, well, you faked that evidence, right? So if you believe polio, then you can't believe hepatitis and smallpox. It's too long. The timeline is too fucked up. Who jumps in on the timelines and when and what books they write and their hypothesis and their experimentations and where they're pulling from. It's too much. It's too. You gotta let me know if you're gonna jump in the camera, player.
We're fine.
Especially if you're not supposed to be on this.
I put my back to it.
Her mom doesn't want her to be on my show. Yeah, man. So that's tough. You know, analysis of 5 samples of OPV in storage at a Westar Institute, including one batch from the Belgian Congo between 1958 and 1960, also found no chimpanzee DNA. This kind of gets blown out of the water. In 2004, the journal of Nature described the hypothesis as quote-unquote refuted. Other additional theories of AIDS and HIV origins, U.S. government or its contractor created at Fort Derrick, which we're going to go into in a second. This is where actually it gets really interesting. Conspiracy to decrease the population in a 1991 radio broadcast in Behold a Pale Horse, an author, Milton William Cooper, proposed that AIDS was a result of conspiracy to decrease population of blacks, Hispanics, and homosexuals. That is a common theme among vaccines, so that becomes a problem, right? If that exists for all vaccines, you think these smart science motherfuckers that could hide all of this information and dupe the public and lie and cheat and steal, they would just pick one. Why do we have to do this across all diseases? And I'm going to go into this in a second. Why the fuck would we cure any diseases then? If we want disease to eradicate the population and the elites have the cure, then why the fuck isn't it doing it? And why the fuck would we help? You would think that medicine would just be on a fucking nosedive of apocalypse, and it don't get a paper cut, you're gonna fucking die, dude. But then like you have serious shit and you go to cancer treatment, you're like, bro, I've been cancer free for 10 years. Holy shit, I went in with a terminal illness. My doctor gave me 6 months. Here I am 20 years later. Like you would have an ultimate eradication. We would find plans for an Elysium or utopia like I talked about in the previous thing. We would see this at this point. I don't even know if I need to go into some of this shit. This is actually interesting. There's actually been studies done to try and conclude why some of these conspiracy theories exist, and conclusions can be placed on that blacks and Hispanics of these studies were more than 3 times more likely than whites to believe in AIDS origin conspiracy theory. Holding this belief was not associated with a decreased likelihood of participation in or an increased fear of participation in biomedical research to lack the overall education in science, medicine and science, or medical history to negative experiences with doctors in person's lifetime. Some people have a negative experience with their doctor and they just turn on medicine. And typically when that happens, they all of a sudden start kind of collecting a pool of sources that say the opposite of what they've always heard. And because that hurt them, they now all of a sudden, have this belief and trust in this other part, where it's Eastern medicine or that kind of stuff, or a naturopath or an Instagram influencer or shit on Facebook kind of thing. Another study found that rumors about HIV and AIDS persist only within African American public. Focus groups and public discourse data revealed the content and distribution of HIV and AIDS origin and conspiracy rumors. Rumors and contemporary legend theory allows reinterpretation of rumors as a measure of trust between the African American public and health professionals, not as evidence of ignorance or of historical racial oppression. It is obviously massively devastating is not the word. Beyond fucking wrong how COVID has hit Hispanic and Black populations and Indian populations. It tore the Navajo Nation apart. Is tearing them apart. They were massively lied to. They had an Arizona congressman, I believe, try to secure them. They bought $3 million in mass, and they didn't fucking get it, and they never got the money back. When this all ends, if a lot of information comes out specifically about the Navajo Nation and what they've suffered through in coronavirus, yeah, we have evidence and proof and all the data and research we can on the Tuskegee experiment. You can look at this with the Native American profile and COVID and what happened with the Navajo Nation specifically, and you'd be like, oh my God, did you get fucked and are getting fucked? And I don't know if you're going to get the fuck out of this. I don't know if you could ever come back from this. It's beyond devastating. It's beyond fucking crushing. It's beyond heartbreaking for a lot of these populations. I'm not saying that if I even have to say this, I'm not saying that if any whites died or Scottish, Irish folk died, that's okay. None of this was okay. All of this was preventable to an extent. It definitely doesn't have to, it's January 22nd, 2021. Definitely doesn't have to be what it is now. And hopefully we're going to reverse a lot of this shit, and we're hopefully going to see how fucking easy it was to do it, which is going to shine a light on a lot of other different issues, and hopefully some fucking charges, hopefully some fucking court cases, hopefully some people who actually get and receive and hit it with some justice on this shit. So it's interesting that if we wanted to flip and reverse the conspiracy at this time, and then it would be proper to notice that very few medical or science professions or professionals of any kind are promoting these conspiracies are actually people of color. So a lot of people who I think everybody I read for the 3 vaccine theories are not of color. Later on, there's some sources that kind of get picked up, and we're going to figure out why and shit like that really quickly. So yeah, you're like, well, Dr. Sebi's black, and he said he can cure cancer and AIDS. Okay. Was he paid? Was he making money? You don't know. He seemed like a nice dude. He seemed like he was doing the right thing. A lot of these doctors do. A lot of snake oil salesmen do. I'm here for you, man. I'm trying to take you to the right path. Look at how many crazy... shut up. Look at how many crazy, religious leaders we have. You look at, I mean, even all the way to the last final moments, if you've ever heard the FBI recording, you can read it too, of Jim Jones. That guy, to the end, was like, I did this for you. I was trying to save you. I was trying to do the right thing. So many people, shut your mouth. So many people say and do that, and rightfully so. So let me make sure it gets the last kicked out. So I mean, some of these dudes, they'll get somebody in with you, they'll get somebody close to your camp, and they'll start implanting the information. They know you're a prominent figure. They know they can use you. They've figured it out. They got the whole game played, but they're just putting you into the game all of a sudden. And they're going to give you this information. Did you hear about this theory? Did you hear about this shit? How crazy they're trying to oppress us. They're trying to kill us. They look at all these negativities, and it's like, you can fix this. You alone can save these people if you just go out there and say the right thing. Awesome, we will pay you to do this. So I think I brought it up in the last video. It's interesting, and I'm not saying this in a negative way. I'd rather have the natural shit work out. I didn't say this last time. I want to say it now. I want the natural shit to work out. The entire time I was promoting discussing the seriousness of COVID and how many people are unhealthy and how many people need to kind of change their mindset that this is not the flu and you need to fix this and it's a big deal. Sorry. At the same time, these small things were coming out of oh, you take vitamin D, you're fine. Like, fuck, yeah, dude, yes, do that. Fuck, I hope so, man. I hope it doesn't come down to medication. I'm not sponsored by any of these companies. I'm promoting the healthiest way out of this possible. Don't do, if you can avoid medication on that route, find a natural alternative, do it. But a lot of this stuff springs from natural alternatives and they turn into medication. But cures are hard to come by and they're not cheap. And then we do this and we make it cheap and we make it available. And all of a sudden it doesn't fit the narrative anymore. It doesn't fit the theory. So, So while, yeah, Dr. Sebi exists, you could say in this conspiracy that he was bought and paid for by whites to promote this to blacks. You don't know that, right? It sounds shitty. I'm not shitting on the guy's reputation. Go do veganism. Just do it right. Right? You want to do keto? Okay, do it right. Make sure you're fucking in line for that shit. Okay? You want to make these kinds of changes? I have people come to me all over the world that, hey, what if I do this? Okay, well, we got to make sure it works for you. Like one of my coaches famously said, actually, doctor fucking wrote one of the medical textbooks for Harvard. What's the best diet? What's the best nutrition plan? The one that works for you, right? You can get this stuff. Some people, they don't like meat. Maybe they got to get some protein sources from somewhere else. Maybe it's good to switch that shit up. Stop eating eggs for a while. Switch to rice protein or pea protein. Okay, you can't. And then you have shit like Game Changers, right? Game Changers come out. Fuck, shit. Vegan is the way to go. Well, the director owns the largest pea manufacturer in the world. Skeptical, right? Well, that was weird, right? So these things happen, okay? But I'm spitting an alternate conspiracy theory, not to refute or say anybody is flatly wrong, but you have to look at the logic behind this. This dude makes these claims that only his shit works, and it only works the way that it does. You can't take other people's supplements. You got to take his. And, okay, and it costs the same. The treatment costs the same as the treatment for AIDS. Okay, fuck it. Well, I want to do the natural thing. I don't want to do the medical thing. I'm gonna try the natural thing. Do it. Okay. Don't die though. You can't get yourself in a background, a hole where you're not gonna come out because your beliefs are so rooted in something. I've had people talk themselves out. I think I talked about this in episode 1, but I've had people talk themselves out of serious conditions. It's weird. I've met someone who literally smoked pretty much their whole life, went out to work, forgot their cigarettes, was literally going to get back in the vehicle and go home to get them, and was like, you know what, fuck it, and never smoked again. I've known people that have done are coke addicts or heroin addicts and have done mushrooms and had a serious trip and never fucking did drugs again. There are occurrences like that. There is a lot. There's a lot out there. You can't just narrow it down and say that doesn't exist, that's not possible, and it's not going to happen. It's definitely best to keep an open mind to a lot of this stuff. Magic Johnson, though, he's on a different side as an example, as a dude who, a lot of people say he cured AIDS, right? He doesn't have AIDS. He's not testing HIV positive. I don't know if he's publicly stated that or his doctors have publicly stated that, so I would have to look that up as a side note. And a lot of people were like, well, he did it with money and connections. Well, if he did, and he's black, and he's a part of the black community and African American, and has a soul and wants to help people, he wasn't offered the cure that I know of, or that you know of, as a standalone. We'll cure you and no one else. And then he doesn't promote it, or he didn't do it through Western medicine and was like, guys, I know the truth, right? As far as I know, that's never happened. I've met the guy a couple times. I didn't have any conversations like that. He wasn't like, hey, man, what's up, man? Do you want to cure AIDS? So, there's missed connections and connecting points where all of a sudden you're like, oh, fuck. And you want to intersect it. You wanted to hit that point so it goes somewhere else. And it's just fucking nosedives or dead ends, man. And it's unfortunate, and you gotta be able to step back when that happens and look at the logic and the rationale. Can I realign this? Can I readjust it? Can I reconfigure it or not? Is it dead in the water? So I haven't heard anybody from Magic's camp or anybody that knows Magic. No one's even leaked this kind of shit. That it's bullshit. There's a cure. They're lying to you. The other things that get associated with some of these people. So it's kind of easy to turn around different ways. You can flip the script and send the conspiracy in the other direction. The study went on to say some interesting things in the conclusion, such as one, as HIV and AIDS crisis begins in its 4th decade, with ambiguities about origins, transmission, and treatments resolved in most sectors of society, there is some concern that the general population has become complacent about HIV and AIDS. 2, the persistence of genocide rumors within African American public found in this research, however, demonstrates that for African Americans, social anxieties have not been addressed or addressed properly. 3, misunderstanding, distrust, and misunderstanding, distrust can compound distrust. So if you already have distrust, but you have misunderstanding about that distrust, it makes the distrust even worse and compounds it. For instance, you can broadly say online, or weird if you're the weird guy at the party like I am, AIDS was originally inserted into a vaccine, so it was administered to the public to kill gays and bisexuals. Okay, which vaccine then? Right now we know there's three. So which one are you talking about? Right, and then who did it, and then why, and then how, and what year was this, and then when you start doing that kind of stuff. So if you're just like vaccines, then we are in a clusterfuck of issues, right? If we're just going to use the word vaccine, we can go so many directions and so many bad ways. So when health professionals see conspiracy rumors as evidence of ignorance that interferes with the efforts to change behaviors, they risk ratifying the trust gap by labeling the person a non-expert who has concerns as ignorant. To dismiss or ignore genuine concerns about racial health disparities because they express themselves through distrust of logical, salient, and valid health professions initiatives confuses cause and effect. Thus, the conversation can become a struggle about who gets to control the tone and content of the discourse, and the side that suffers and the depredations of the disease is also expected to surrender to the discursive disputation about meaning, about the lived experiences of a social group burdened with racism. That is very well put. Interestingly enough, there are three important approaches to understanding the rumors about HIV and AIDS in the African American community. For folklorists, and for deeper understanding of social and cognitive dynamics that underlie the rumors, understanding the origins, meanings, and methods of propagation is inherently important. Addressing the causes of rumors about the origins and transmission of HIV and AIDS forms the basis of the research presented here in this study, because their genealogy is inextricably linked to their meaning to the people who hear them, tell them, and sometimes believe them, and engage in associated behaviors. Second, there is the information that rumors reveal about the anxieties and concerns of the communities where they persist. Clearly, the segments of African American public, which may be among the most educated segments, have sustained HIV/AIDS genocide rumors for decades and continue to experience substantial social anxiety about experimentation, particularly of the type identified in the United Nations Resolution of 1949, which says, threats to bodies, unique culture, and social identity. Finally, by understanding what rumors are and the legitimate anxieties they represent, it becomes possible to reframe quote-unquote ignorance as counter-knowledge and move beyond education toward the kind of cooperation, albeit contentious and at times combative, that raise the level of mutual trust between U.S. gay white community and research and public health institutions. Having suspicions of public institutions and abiding by distrust for social sources of knowledge about HIV and AIDS is not illegitimate. The question facing public health professionals is how to contend with the situation that the analysis of these rumors reveals. So even, that's an amazing point, and for sure should something be addressed by both medical and science communities alike, and their histories, and their futures, where they intend to go. It's we knew ahead of time that vaccines, particularly among colored populations, Black and Hispanic, was going to be difficult with the coronavirus vaccine. And it was brought up, and one of the main doctor behind, I believe, Moderna's vaccine is an African-American scientist. And even when she came out, people were saying, you're bullshit, you're paid for, you're a liar, you're trying to fuck us over, you're just the medical elite, you're just trying to hurt the poor man, poor woman. These things still persist. This study was done quite a few years ago. It's so interesting to see that what was said in this conclusion discussion is like literally exactly what's going on right now, right? So if you see that throughout time, it gets kind of difficult. And I'm actually going to go into like what the fuck even studies are doing with this in a moment. We're almost done. We're an hour in, I understand. There's also the conspiracy theory that AIDS is made by the CIA to wipe out homosexuals and African Americans. It's weird that you can pick both. Like, how the fuck do you do that? You know? So I don't hear like a lot. Interestingly enough, I don't hear a lot from the homosexual communities and LGBTQ this theory, right? It's weird, and you know a lot of these people they don't have, especially for homosexuality and LGBTQ, you don't have those realizations or some of those thoughts or some of those actions and thought patterns and kind of stuff until way later in life, right? Sometimes you're trying to keep it quiet the whole time, so how the fuck would they know? You know, this you interject a virus that's only aimed for a couple people, like you would see it first of all, and we didn't see it, right? So and this theory also, the CIA theory also took some high-profile celebrities, including a South African president and a Nobel Peace Prize awarded Kenyan ecologist. But if that was the case, the CIA and the FBI would probably have done more to infect people. It wouldn't have been like a just fucking like just toss it out there and see what happens kind of thing. There would have probably been like secret campaigns, and we probably would have found this shit out by now to get the virus out there, not just circulating, but also just like mass infections. And it would have been a huge, bigger epidemic like now. Like, you got to stay inside and we're going to fucking microchip you and you know, maybe we'll sell you a vaccine and maybe not. So if you look at COVID as a conspiracy, it's a man-made virus set upon the earth to destroy or destroy populations, particular populations. As with AIDS, it's claimed to be a genocide, essentially. You would have seen something similar in both the AIDS epidemic and the COVID epidemic, but they don't really match up. And more prominent people would have been infected as well, especially if they believed that it would cause fear. So we would kill celebrities like Tom Hanks and then be like, oh shit, it's real, you know? If the FBI is willing to destroy MLK for any reason it can come up with back in the day, or gather tons of evidence and secret files on people and their habits and affairs, then would it also have been high time for them to actually put an eradication plan into action? If you look at the totality of secret information or conspiracy theories over time, a lot of them get found out, right? This is one of the very interesting sides of conspiracy theories is like what we actually discover and what we can actually prove and what, you know, remains a mystery. Some actual mysteries still remain and get propagated. The real evidence comes out, but the theory still holds more weight and desire and public attention. So if you look at the U.S. in particular, we are pretty bad at keeping secrets. The attempt to destroy the image of MLK, we found it out. JFK assassination, found out. Bobby Kennedy and MLK assassinations, found out. Tuskegee experiment, found out. Things in the water, found out. Secret bases discovered, found out. Government secrets, discovered. Watergate, discovered. Aliens, released. Iran-Contra, found out. Bin Laden, found him. Iraq-Iran, found him, got him. Vietnam, found out. We don't know all and everything and the details and players and the intricacies of a lot of this stuff, but we know mostly all of it, or at least the general proof of the theory that we eventually get enough behind to be like, that's the leading thought right now. So for this particular theory of a malicious AIDS origin or HIV origin theory, if true, to be hidden this long is a long shot in itself. Associated with this theories and others like it is the withholding of a cure or vaccine by government, HIV being used to control or kill off people not wanted by society. She's too loud for me. I'm going to give her the boot. Give me a second. You know, we're going to kick you. They're going to think I'm snoring or some shit. I love you, Mama. I love you, but you got to go. Say bye to the people. Exactly. All right. I know. Gotta give you the boot. She's so loud. She's so loud. Me? No, the chubby dog. Chubby one's way too loud. All right, so. Okay. So, associated with this theories and other like it is the withholding of a cure or vaccine by the government. HIV being used to control or kill off people not wanted by society. People being used as guinea pigs by drug companies. Okay, so And there's some cool movies that are associated with those kinds of thoughts and theories. While these beliefs do not necessarily correlate with decreased HIV testing or condom use, they do not appear to significantly impact drug adherence rates. Research from Harvard Medical School indicated that those who held HIV conspiracy beliefs were far less likely to achieve optimal adherence than those who did not. So, like COVID, I don't believe masks work, so I'm not going to wear them. So with that said, studying why people do believe theories like this and trying to offer other suggestions and action plans to fix it goes against the logic of it being a secret and something they did or are still trying to carry out. If they made this for harm and are withholding the cure and they're experimenting on us and they want to remove certain populations from the earth, then why study it? Why study just the thoughts behind it? There's a lot more questions to ask in this. In 2014, there was a study, part of an online survey conducted, and it was a 2014 study done in 2013. The results weighted the best representation of U.S. population by age, ethnic group, income, and gender, and 6 popular medical conspiracy beliefs used in the survey were correlated with a range of health behaviors. For instance, 12% believed that the CIA deliberately infected a great number of African Americans under the guise of hepatitis vaccinations. Okay, there's some other ones. 12% believe that public water fluoridation is simply a way for chemical companies to dump byproducts of phosphate mines into the environment. Shit like that, okay? I'm not going to go through all of them. You can look them online. While we look at these conspiracy theories, it helps if overall it does not splinter into sub or even more far out theories. That actually dilutes the potential for truth. So, for instance, Bigfoot, right? I told you in the beginning we're going to go through this. If we go from actualities, right? Bigfoot-like creatures are a part of earlier people's folklore. You kind of know that. That's documented. You'll see like rock paintings that supposedly look like a Bigfoot, or through tribes, there's stories, there's passed down stories of giant hairy-like creatures, and, wild men and that kind of stuff. And also there's early reports of the wild man stuff. From similar like creatures, mostly in the Americas. Right? You don't see this like in Antarctica, right? Greenland doesn't have like, I don't think they have a Bigfoot theory or Bigfoot speculation. But then we hunt that down for a long time of this, these creatures, these sightings, and we gather evidence and reports, right? Video and pictures and testimonials and all this kind of shit. But then all of a sudden someone goes, well, they're shapeshifters, right? So it's not just an ape that's been able to kind of avoid detection and evidence. It gets spotted once in a while. And the reason we don't have any of that proof is because they're shapeshifters, obviously. And that's why we haven't seen them. And then somebody else goes, well, actually, they're dimension travelers. They actually travel between dimensions. So, we only see them briefly, and then they just occasionally pass through our dimension and then into theirs, and then maybe or to another one, and somebody else goes, no, you're both right, but they're also working with aliens, so that's why we can't find them, because like aliens, they come in and out, and actually they're the ones on the ship, so it's not the little gray men, they're partnered with them. But Bigfoot actually is kind of the main. That's a type of alien, and so it comes on its ships, and then we see them, and they get back on the ship, and they leave, and so that's why some of these interactions are associated with things in the sky. They see monkey on land, thing in the sky, boom, figured it out, and so that creates a lot of shit. Once you're like, oh, it's a ancient type bipedal ape that is just a master at hide and seek, and then you're like, that's the theory, and then you go like, boom, let's create parallel universe theories of it as well. That's when everything gets fucked up. So now you can't you're like, you talk to somebody and like, I saw Bigfoot, and you're like, shit, really? Yeah, where? Oh, it was in the Sierra Mountains. What happened? He was walking. Then what? Went for my camera, and he got in a spaceship, and he flew away. And you're like, you crazy motherfucker. You had me for a second. I believed you. I thought you saw a monkey man. And then you fucked it up by that monkey man, Chewbacca'd his shit and got on the fucking, so that shit happened. So if we're currently working with 4 main aid conspiracy theories just on origin alone, A, they don't coincide. B, they're kind of retellings of the same story. C, we don't have evidence, we don't have facts, we have actually the opposite, things that back up other things that are said. So we should be able to check some of those off. We should, like, now, 2021, should be like, you know what, we're going with one AIDS origin theory, here it is, right? So, and then we're going to ride that out. The other ones, actually, they weren't true. So, and this is why they weren't true, and this is, again, the why. So we need to do that. So, if we can't narrow the origin, we can't move on to something that is a part of it, like other shit about cures and treatments and diseases and all that kind of shit. So, this type of logic becomes more fucked up because why cure some diseases then? If money and transmission and treatment is really where it's at, going back to the Chris Rock joke, and all these entities are working together and, in an organization, big tech, pharma, medicine, then why just run the simulation as everything is fucked? Why hold back on creating the apocalypse? Everything needs to be controlled. Everything needs to be profitable. We need to keep the people sick and suppressed. Okay, then why the fuck aren't we doing that? Why do you have something like COVID come out and they're like, oh shit, this is their attempt to fucking murder us? And then science literally goes, if you take vitamin D, you could actually probably do really well at staving off COVID or severe COVID symptoms. And you're like, shouldn't have done that. I thought this was it. I thought this was their big shot. They were shooting it. And now you're telling me how to fix it. So I don't understand. Why? You should tell me that, like, all of a sudden now, a couple months in it, the vitamin D actually you do worse. You actually die faster from the disease. You can't have a back and forth. It's either going to go one direction fully and keep that with some really good momentum, or you got to fucking get off the theory and go to something else. I'm not opposed to making up different theories and thinking about it. That you can't ride one off a cliff, Thelma and Louise style, for this shit. So we can't cure some shit. We know that, right? We can't cure some diseases. We made the joke. And give hope at the same time while continuing to cause speculation and further potentialities of the theories. You convolute the logic and rationale of that. If COVID was really what crazy fuckers were originally saying it was, one, we haven't seen any of those original theories play out whatsoever. And two, why rush to get a vaccine and then make it free? If you're gonna, and then the theory just goes, well, there's something in the vaccine. Motherfucker, you just said a moment ago, this is it. This is their big shot. They're gonna initiate government control. They're gonna lock us down. They're gonna fuck us up. They got this disease out there. They're bullshitting it. They're lying about it. And then, they're gonna try to make a vaccine. Okay, sure. Oh, they made it? They made it. And, okay. Oh, well, how much does it cost? It's free. I need 2 of them? But there's another company that made one? So there's 3 companies that made the vaccine. And they're all doing different shit, but it's all free. And I just make an appointment? Well, what the fuck is in it, player? That's where they get you. That's how they got us. They could have done that with anything. They could have just ran AIDS into the ground. They didn't need the cure. Well, Dr. Fauci was curing that too. Yeah, it's his fucking job, dude. Like you gotta be able to lay it out, stick with it. It has to hold shit. Right now, it's like we're like collecting dust bunnies and like we're putting them up there. And we're like, ha ha. Oh shit, fuck. He went. Okay, so he's gone. So what now? So this stuff it gets tough. If for instance, again, where all this came from was the Chris Rock joke. If they're not trying to cure shit, why the fuck are they curing shit? Right? If they're trying to keep you sick and addicted and take your money, then why would we see research and funding in science and science articles and studies in an attempt to correct course and a cure, and people saying the opposite, people saying, yeah, man, you don't need to take a medicine. Like something recently is like, saffron works as well as most antidepressants. Well, they were trying to sell us antidepressants. So you're telling me I can cure this with a plant? Yeah. So I don't need to buy the medication. No. I need to buy the plant. Yeah. I'm going to buy the fucking plant. What were you doing, dude? You just said because of one reason alone, this company made this thing for me to be addicted to, and I need it. But then another company makes a natural alternative to it. Well, I'm going to go that route. Well, it's the same fucking boat, man. You're just at a different end. This is essentially a bunch of blindfolded people touching an elephant, right? I feel it's an ear, and then other people are like, well, it's a tail, and we're all touching the same fucking thing. So, eventually, like you said, eventually this stuff's got to pan out. It's got to work. As of right now, it ain't, and about to get interesting in a second. So, if COVID was bullshit, meant to kill everyone, and then whatever, then why rush a vaccine and make it free? Because it's what's in the vaccine? No, because we ain't fucking seen that either. The vaccines weren't readily available for everyone, and we can all be vaccinated at the same time, and that's where the fucking real shit was, and it's all fucked up. No, it's all different levels and stuff. What? Like, Israel's almost fully vaccinated? Yeah, and they're fine? They're totally fine. Oh, shit. What about the UK? Well, 6 people have an allergic reaction. Gotcha. You can't have this shit happening and you're like, over there, look, and then you actually get over there and they're like, oh, there's nothing because it's actually over there, right? Like we can't, like, this is what's happening, which is why I'm trying to like put some kind of like weight behind how some of this stuff isn't true. I'm just gonna skip past a couple of stuff because I think I've done it. Here's what's most fucking interesting about all this stuff. You can look this up. And so if you wanted some truth, here's where we're at. Sage Pub Journals in what's called JIAPAC, or Journal of International Association of Provider of AIDS Care. They have a paper claiming that it was actually East Germany that fabricated the myth of HIV being man-made or intentional. How, you ask? Well, in the abstract, it says, despite the fact that the origin of HIV being a contamination of a mutation or originating from primates is well documented, alternative narratives are often being heard of, especially in sub-Saharan Africa. One such narrative is about HIV being man-made in the military laboratory in the United States. This article from here goes on to show with actual evidence that you can back up in a multitude of ways that intelligence services by East Germany and what's called the GDR, the German Democratic Republic, as part of ideological warfare during the Cold War. The purpose of this article is to put an end to the long-lasting conspiracy theory, which is still alive and may create diversion from serious research of the topic. So essentially what happened is an elaborate narrative and disseminating information was put into East German colleagues, mainly due to geographical factors. They went out and spread it. The Department of Disinformation, what's called HAV, within Stasi, in the Soviet Union in particular, had the plan to spread the idea into neighboring countries. So the Soviet Union was going to create this misinformation. It was going to leak it out to other people, and then they would launch it. Russia can't get blamed. Did I talk about this an hour and a half ago? You're damn right I did. Right? So this is where all this come from. According to this narrative, HIV was created in a laboratory at Fort Detrick in Maryland that belonged to the U.S. Army, and then something went wrong in the process. And you can read this online. This Operation Infektion, Infektion. That was the project name from the Stasi officers. They have the people who were behind this. The military dude had a PhD in military history. In order to make such a narrative credible, he constructed it. They needed prestigious scientists and respected scientists to help out. It was crucial that the scientists were not aware that the project being a hoax, but fully accepted and believed the story. So they fed them enough evidence and enough proof to flip their concern. They go out as an expert and start promoting this stuff. The choice fell on a retired professor of biology, Dr. Jacob Siegel, and his wife Lily. Both were Soviet citizens living in East Berlin. The Siegels were communists and loyal to East Germany state that had been informal collaborators of Stasi, but it was essential to Stasi that the Siegels would believe that the narrative was genuine. So the professor was presented with forged documents that were claimed to be leaked from Fort Detrick, something that made him fully believe in the story. The contributing factor was the rumors that had circulated in the United States since the 1980s about the U.S. military using humans for experiments with biological warfare, and a story about spreading flu virus in San Francisco in 1955, where one person was presumed to have died. Another rumor told about an experiment in Tampa Bay where 12 civilians were supposed to have died. Furthermore, official reports from the United States and the Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA, that actually tested LSD on uninformed people. We know this. We know that the U.S. has a history, so other countries capitalize on it. Do I believe what I just said in all of it right now? Yeah. It makes the most sense of everything. My issue is this particular article has quite a few misspellings, and I need to check whether or not the article is coming from an ESL, English Second Language, or it's written in a different language and they just did like a copy and paste Google translated and missed some words. There's some misspellings, so that causes some concern. But overall, you can go read this online by Googling that. That comes up with some very other interesting things. They have specific people, specific times, specific places. If you're looking at 3 vaccine origins of AIDS, and you're looking at this document alone, this has way more evidence, citation, proof, theories, tracing, tracking, why behind it than the other stuff. I'm gonna leave it at that. Though the AIDS and HIV origin theories are interesting, though there's tidbits of evidence behind each, and there's some logic behind each, the grand scheme of when that happened to now, the why, did it work, was it planned out, how did it get planned out, how, the why behind all that stuff, it is not accurate. This goes on for quite a few parts. The conclusion is, despite the fact that it seems to be proven beyond reasonable doubt that the origin of HIV is much older, and then that the age of HIV as a pandemic that originates from other primates, because we have evidence behind that. It's not just one disease. There's several, and they've been around for a long time. It is remarkable that various conspiracy theories still have strong tendency to flourish. Paradoxically, as shown in this article, the theory of HIV being man-made in itself is the product of a political conspiracy. This real conspiracy not only is this real conspiracy, that it's a political conspiracy, is not only is it real, but it also constitutes a threat to public health. And that makes sense. We didn't wipe out blacks. We didn't wipe out gays. We didn't wipe out gay blacks. So what happens? Well, it's a political conspiracy to fuck over the entire U.S. and create all this havoc in their end. And this is why 90 minutes in, I'm making this part 2 of this video. I did this research. I spent a couple days on this because that's where it's at, right? There's shorter anti-vaccination documentaries than the video that I just made on this stuff. So look up that information, look up that article if you want to know what it is or where it is, or the book that's written in German about it that somehow didn't get translated into other languages. Hit me up about that kind of stuff, but I think we got to leave it there. I think if we're looking at this, there's too many origins, there's too many cooks in the kitchens, and none of them know how to cook. And so you end up with this political thing, which we've been able to prove recently, and we were able to prove way back when. We got people, we got documents, you kind of got to go with that. So we can keep spinning this, but let's do it logically, let's do it rationally, let's do it kindly. Let's have an open dialogue and conversation. This was fun. This last article kind of put the nail in the coffin for me, put several nails in the coffin. It dug a hole, and then it put the coffin in the hole, and then it buried everything. So that's where I'm at. especially because we don't really have shit on any other vaccinations that are even close to theories that match this. So, it was cool. Again, should you try to stay healthy? Should you try to do a healthier route? Should you try to avoid these medications and be healthy and avoid disease and thrive and not survive? Yeah, for sure. I'm all about that. If you got questions on that, please let me know as well. Let's leave it there. This was fun. Part 2. Thank you. Thanks for dealing with the pugs. Hope to do something else soon. Have fun. Take care. See you later. Stay weird.